What's up? So in this video I'm going to be talking about the 5 ways that I personally learned to deal with the pain of an 8-year relationship. And it's incredibly painful, raw thing for men to go through. I don't think there's any singular experience out there that's as harrowing as breaking up from a long relationship. If this is something that you need help with, or if you know a friend going through this at the moment, really struggling with the pain of this video is going to completely change your agenda and accelerate that process to healing that you need.
The way that you are, all the way that you are.
So today, my experience of dealing with the pain of a breakup. This is quite a deep topic for me to talk about. This is quite a harrowing, event in my life in a lot of ways. And I'll go into detail about the ins and outs of what happened and how I got myself through it and how the situation was a bit of a mess in other videos. But essentially, I want to outline just briefly my experience of going through a breakup, where I was close to someone for 8 years, and the kind of key points that I used to get through this, and it's really, I'm just telling myself this, right? So the situation was I was on and off with a girl for 8 years. She knew what I did professionally. She kind of, I'm a big advocate of, or a big believer in, if you're high enough value, this is evolutionary biology in action. A girl will kind of let you get away with doing what you want to do. So this was the case, right? I was kind of charging around, having fun, dating other people, but I'm also emotionally very invested. I was with this girl for 8 years. As far as I know, it was closed on her side, but it was open on mine. I was with her for 4 years. We had a break and then another 4 years. And that came to an end, about nine months ago or so. I've had some interaction with her since. And it was, you always have that thing of thinking, oh yeah, I'm a bit of a boss, it's not going to matter. If this person leaves my life, it's going to be so easy now, right? It's the whole grass is greener thing. When you're in a relationship, you're like, fuck, I don't want to be in a relationship. I don't want to deal with this person. When you're out of a relationship, all you can think about is I want to be in a relationship. But I was it was quite toxic towards the end. It was quite a negative experience. Neither of us wanted to let go. It was the sunk cost, thing of like, we've both known each other and you're ripping off a big part of your life. And so when it eventually blew up in a spectacularly bad way, which I'll go into in another video, or maybe if I meet some of you guys in person on a training, I can, talk to you about over a beer. But it blew up in probably the worst way you can imagine. But anyway, the point is, I then have that period of time where we all think that you're going to be, up to your nuts and guts, like champagne, celebrating with the lads, charging around partying, when the reality is you're sitting in your house on your own, a big part of your life has been ripped away and you're fucking sad and lonely and depressed, right? Because you can't fill that void. It's like ripping off a body part that's been attached to you for 8 years. Whether you're completely invested in the relationship or not, or whether you think you're not invested in a relationship, when you've had someone in your life for 8 years, even if parts of it were negative and terrible and low and depressing, you're going to be very, very emotionally ingrained into that person. So these last 9 months have been tough. In a great position in life where I can travel the world and I can meet people and have a skill set to do so, and I'm sociable and I know people and I can get back on the wagon, right, when it comes to dating. But there is essentially no way of just immediately replacing that person. And the question is, do you even want to? I mean, I'd argue one of the worst things you can do when you come out of a relationship is actually jump straight back into another, which is what I didn't do. But here are kind of 5, I want to list out 5 points. I've written them down in my terrible drunken spider handwriting. But 5 points that really helped me move on, and something that maybe if someone is watching that's going through a bad breakup or something, well, yeah, mainly a bad breakup, or it could be a divorce. 5 things or 4 or 5 points that I've made that have been very, very useful for me that I didn't really know at the time, but now through the experience of going through this for a while and the emotional pain fading to a large degree. Of course, I have the memorable hand shandy over the good old days, but generally speaking, not being a big part of my mental life anymore as I weep into my pillow. These are some things in hindsight would be really helpful if only I'd known these, right? And I tried searching for stuff on YouTube that helps you, but it's all kind of like, it seems helpful, doesn't it? But when you're caught up in the fucking rigmarole of like the pain of something being ripped away, and you're depressed as well, maybe you're drinking too much, you're traveling, you don't know people, you listen to this stuff and it just doesn't make any sense, right? So bear in mind all this information I'm going to give you, or all these kind of key points that help me. I understand that it might go in one ear out the other. You might have to rewatch this video a few times. It might not mean anything now. Maybe the pain and the rawness and the emotion is too intense. I get it. When you've been with someone for a long time and they you know, they leave you or you leave them or the relationship comes to an end, it's fucking painful. It's a horrible feeling, and it's just this deep pain that you can't replicate as a man in any other context, I don't think. You know, it's just something that's a very male experience, a very harrowing experience. And women obviously feel emotional pain, but they seem a lot better equipped to deal with it, seemingly from my experience, and able to move on quickly, right? And I think that's kind of evolutionary biology in action. Without further ado, first point from my experience is what I've touched on here, is give yourself time, right? You're going to try and force it. You're going to try and force yourself to move on. You're going to try and force yourself to distract yourself from the pain. And whilst it is good to go out and do other activities and focus on things that are going to distract you from it, part of the thing that I should have done in hindsight is actually sit in the pain, deal with it, maybe even ramp up the pain, right? Putting on some depressing music and having a good old fucking cry, as pussified as that sounds and as unmasculine as it sounds, me saying, you know, to do it, when I accidentally did that a few times, wanting to almost like writhe in the self-loathing and the self-hatred and the mistakes I've made, I felt so much better afterwards. And we don't want this to become some depressing, you know, loop of negativity and victim mindset. But as men, I think we're very unvulnerable, and I think we're very, we've got to fight the good fight and always be like the man and blah, 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 which is fine. And I actually agree with that in public, right? You shouldn't go around like sharing all your sorrows with everyone the whole time. But on your own, if you're feeling low, sit in that emotion and accept it and be okay with it, right? And actually ramp it up. So don't run away from it, ramp it up and accept that over time. They say jokingly, I think for every year you've been in a relationship, it takes a month to get over, you know? So, you know, I was with this girl on and off for 8 years, 8 months, it's about right? If this to be believed. But give yourself time and just realize it is a process, and as horrible as it feels at the beginning, it will feel better towards the end, right? As time goes on, it will feel better. Second point is date if you feel like it. I used to be a big advocate, and I'd always say to guys who came for relationship advice, and I'd always be thinking to myself, right, if I break up with someone, the best way of getting over one girl is get under 10 more. Some guys that works for, right? What I definitely wouldn't recommend doing is sitting there, you know, buying a subscription to Pornhub and like hammering them out daily as a way to kind of create sexual separation. If you feel like dating, if you feel like having sex with other people, do it. But if you don't, also be okay with that. So I think the key thing here is listen to how you feel. This experience is going to be different for everyone. It varied for me. Sometimes I was very up for like, right, I need to go out and date. I need to bang. I need to revalidate myself. I need to create some sexual separation. Some days I just wanted to go and sit in the woods, you know, and chill out on my own and kind of reflect on the nature of existence, right? So it's a very personal thing. I guess listen to what I'm trying to say is listen to how you feel. That's what I did is listen to how I felt through periods of time on a micro and a macro level, and then decided on that basis, do I date, do I not date? My hard and fast rule used to be go out and really just get stuck in straight away, but I'm not so convinced actually that is the right way forward anymore. I think it's down to the individual. One thing I definitely recommend you should do, which I did, is take up 1 or 2 new activities or skill sets, right? So I started learning a new language, and I started doing Muay Thai again and boxing. Those were 2 things that I did because I know I said dwell on the emotion, but at the same time, I think you need to refine who you are. One of the damaging things about being in a relationship is you almost become this kind of weird conjoined organism with the other person, where you start to take on, you start to develop similar interests, you start to lose a bit of who you are, right? So it's super important to go back to basics and think about, right, as a human being, what do I actually enjoy doing? What can I spend my time doing? What can I focus on doing? So take up a new skill, take up a new activity. You're going to meet people doing that, and it's going to make you a better person, right? As a man, we know we have to always develop. We have to keep developing as men. The only true, as Mark Manson says, dating advice is hardcore self-development. So take up a new skill set that interests you or a new activity that interests you. That's only going to add value to what you're doing, and it just provides some sort of outlet as well to the kind of the grieving process you go through. Be around guys who give a shit. There's a great quote, but I think it's Illimitable Man. For years, I've tried to get him on a podcast or chat. He's got no interest, absolutely no interest in even replying to my emails, but he's got some he's got some great content. I'd highly recommend. Again, there's no I get nothing from plugging his content, but he's got some great content. He's like a kind of a an English red pill blogger, Google Illimitable Men. A great quote that I'm going to butcher that I once saw on his Twitter was something like, in fact, let's just pause here, I'll actually look up the quote. Well, it's a really good quote. So butchering the quote completely, I'm not even going to try and do it, but it was along the lines of, when you're winning, people are going to be there, right? And it's when you're down and you're failing and you're in a really dark place, the people who actually give a fuck about you are the ones, or the people who are still around you are the ones you should really actually rely on, who are good friends, right? And it's completely true. If I look at my experience when I've had some really dark moments in life, it's like, and I've been failing and just in a bad place, it's like loads of people run away, right? And it's the people that are there for you, they're the ones that actually give a fuck, and they're the ones that genuinely have your back, right? It's not when you're succeeding, it's when you're failing who is there. And so what I'd recommend to do is be around guys who actually give a shit. You should have a group of guys around you who you can actually reach out to and talk about with regards to vulnerable stuff. There's probably 5 or 6 of those type of characters in my life. If you don't have that as a guy, that's something lacking in my opinion. And you absolutely need to go out and cultivate some of those relationships. I personally know a few guys who I'd consider kind of friends, acquaintances of mine who don't have that. And I think what's very interesting is seeing how much more they suffer when they go through a breakup, because I've seen it, because they don't have anyone around they can confide in, right? So having a cool group of guys around you is something that really helped me, that you can actually kind of call up and be vulnerable to. None of this bullshittery of, oh, I'm just the man, I'm fine. It's like the guy's asked, the guy knows you've broken up with someone, and he's genuinely like, man, how are you doing? Are you okay? And you're like, actually, no. And you have a chat on the phone, or you go for a beer with them and you talk things through. And just by doing that and having an ear to kind of cry to, man, it's been an absolute game changer for me. Because if you try and ride this stuff out on your own, it's very, very dark at times. And again, something that women are great at. They'll go and talk it through with their friends and have a good cry and, watch the Tinder swindler and go, oh, fuck, I want to be on a private jet. But they'll process that emotion from a breakup so much more quickly because they're able to discuss this and be vulnerable, right? And the other thing that I think is going to be controversial, and people go, you were an absolute pussy for saying it, but it's something that really helped me is get a good therapist, right? I know it's new agey now where it's all about sharing emotional problems and stuff, but I honestly think as men, huge problems in my life have come from my inability to talk and be vulnerable with people, right? Which is completely ironic given the job I do. I'm actually very good at listening to people and kind of offering advice objectively. What I'm very bad at is sharing my own kind of pain and insecurity at times and be vulnerable. And, finding a good therapist who you respect and who understands this kind of stuff has been, life-changing for me. I worked with a guy for 4 or 5 months and had perspective on breaking up with the girl in question. It massively accelerated the process of me healing, right? And it sounds all woo-woo and wah-wah and hippie, and guys would probably be sitting there going, oh, you fucking pussy. But I'm just speaking brutally from personal experience, what helped. Maybe it's not a sexy message, maybe it's not the message you want to hear, but finding a really good therapist. And I know a couple, if guys are going through a couple of painful breakups, not a couple of painful breakups, if you are going through a painful breakup and you want to talk, to 1 or 2 really, really qualified guys, then I can put you in touch with these guys. And again, I only recommend guys that I actually personally work with. I don't make any money from recommending them. It's just purely because I think they did a good job for me. So those are the points. Give yourself time. Date if you feel like it. Take up a new activity or skill set or 2. Be around guys who actually give a shit and talk to a therapist. Those are the things now, looking back over 9 months or a year from this very, very dramatic, painful breakup I had, which I'll go into the kind of ins and outs and the do's and the don'ts, the massive learning points I've had. Those are the things in hindsight that have massively accelerated, or would have massively accelerated if I'd known them at the time in advance. So maybe you're in a healthy relationship, right? Maybe you're going really well with your girlfriend or your wife or whatever. Maybe it is worth it, tagging this video, earmarking this video. So if the shit does hit the proverbial fan at some stage and you need a set of principles to come out with, these are stuff that really, really, really did help. And I wish I'd had at the time, because if I just had this list, it probably would have massively enhanced the speed at which I could get through things.
You can now join our completely free day game and cold approach community where you can ask questions to myself or Les or the other coaches. You can meet wings from all around the world. You get free breakdowns of loads and loads of different places for cold approach. You get to meet like-minded men who are all traveling the world, having fun, having an adventure. You see all of the old YouTube videos as well. All of the 1,000+ old YouTube videos that got taken down, they're all uploaded to this portal, and you can suggest new content you want to see. Get all of this completely for free. Link will be in the description below the video, and we'll see you there.
The way that you are, all the way that you are.